Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun, and we are back with our series devoted to revisiting the series DEVS. It was from 2020. Alex Garland directed, wrote it, created it. It's got a lot of his usual suspects in this show, including Nick Offerman and Kaylee Spaney. And we're dealing with quantum computing, folks. But wrapped up in a murder mystery where a tech company took out somebody to protect their secrets and the software engineer who's trying to bring it all to light. And the realistic ways that things go down. Alex Garland is really talented, and I really hope that he keeps going after Civil War. I think he said that he was going to be done directing or something. I don't know. I just don't want him to stop making stuff because he's so good. Um, Now, this first cold, and if you're liking what we do here, by the way, and that we talk about these kind of shows, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And you know what? Look, if you have suggestions, leave your email or find some way to contact me. If you've got some kind of show you'd like me to discuss, we can talk about it. Because, I'm liking it. Somebody else is picking these shows and I'm going with it. So, anyway, our cold open for this episode is the first one that I feel like, well, there's a few things in this episode that we get to see that don't play out yet. And clearly something happens where we think somebody's gone from the project, but I guess would have to come back if to give us context into what we see in this cold open. Because, and I really love this, it's like everybody's face is a different color. Red for, well, not a different color, but everybody's face is in a color. Red for Lyndon, blue for Stewart, red again for Katie, and green for Forrest. And if that has some kind of hidden meaning, go ahead and tell me what it is, because I'm not looking it up. If this guy wants to be all Stanley Kubrick on us, he can. But it was also intercut between blue and red. They gave us a shot of the city, and they give us a lot of these shots of the city. But the thing we also see is like what looks to be like a dead rat on a stage of some court of some sort. I don't know, like in a lab where, in a science room, I guess. I don't know what to call these, but it looks like it's in a lab. It's like desiccated, and they're all kind of staring at it. So what did they try to do? Did they try to age it? Is what I'm thinking. Did they try to, send the rat to the future? I don't know. But that's where they hit us, where we also see, so the images are Lyndon in red, Stewart in blue. Then we cut to the city, Katie in red, Forrest in green, dead rat, question mark. Then Lily in bed, tree ring halo, and then it says devs. And we get this music that I swear is practically out of like, it's not the piano music of like The Exorcist, but God, I just, for some reason, listening to the music where it's like, where they're coming back from the title to the earthquake that happens that they don't even feel. Like we see Forrest like touching the ground, but we can't get any, you don't understand what's happening, what they're feeling, until we see the one of the elevator that goes across the electromagnetic field is shaking a little bit. But that music, man, freaking scary. But they talk about this earthquake, and that, I think this is a bit of foreshadowing to just kind of let us really understand that they're in a floating like glass chamber, and that during an earthquake it would give you pause to think that if this thing were to suddenly fail, they'd all come crashing down in this giant glass structure. But that Katie's not afraid. And there's just another one of those pokes of like, well, is Katie not afraid because she knows nothing's going to happen? But Katie just says, well, no, it's because I understand the building and that all the fail safes that we have, so that if the power were to go off, I know nothing is going to happen. So it's basically like the same thing. She could use the thing to go forward, to look forward, but like what? Why would you like? You would get so obsessed with that. All you would ever be doing is looking. Eventually, all you'd see is you holding the tablet, looking at yourself to do something. But Katie's seen some shit at this point, right? She's so like nonplussed about everything because she's seen it all. We know that she's seen the end, and that's a kind of a big part of this episode is them. Everybody knows that the rule is not to look forward, but everybody knows that they do. It's just a matter of like, how much do they know? How far ahead did they look? And why can't we do it? It's exactly the point that Forrest makes. But Forrest is sitting there, comes in and starts watching a person fall and start crawling away. And it looks a lot like Lily. And just as that happens, we hard cut to her. And there's just this like nice moment between her and Jamie where she's kind of just looking at him. Maybe looking at him like, because all of this started with Sergei and this guy's, and he wasn't who he says he was. And it makes her question everything about their relationship and everything like that, all the danger that he was really putting her in. And here's this guy that she ghosted, and he's taking care of her, and he's being exactly who he says he is. So maybe that's what she's looking at, is that, seeing him like, in a vulnerable state. She's in a vulnerable state. So it's like, maybe she's just seeing him for the first time, maybe in a while. The Katie and Forrest, this is where they talk about, their rules, that they're retreading steps, that he's looking at this thing that he keeps going back to, of Lily crawling away like she's dying, like something has happened to her. And that Forrest is breaking the rule. She points it out, like, dude, if anybody walks in here, how does that look? We tell everybody not to use this thing to see the future, and here you are just flaunting it. And there's this like, well, first off, what's he looking for? But he's like, they know not to do it. But that he also understands that he knows that they do. And she's like, well, how does this help? Because if you already know all this, why are you looking at it? And he's kind of having a hard time explaining it. But what I think he's looking for or hoping for in the end, really, I think is that as much as he wants this to work so that he gets what he wants, which is to see his daughter Amaya. I think that's going to be her name. Like, it's got to be what it is. He brings up the name Amaya, and it just made me realize, he probably had named his company after her. And if they already brought that up, I don't know. But he talks about, well, yeah, what is he looking for? I think he's looking for a break in it. I think he actually wants to be proven wrong, that this isn't like, we aren't all nothing is predetermined. I think he really does, at the heart of it, wants to be proven wrong, that things are changeable. And then maybe if he looks enough times, it will change or something. Because we also go into that, like with what Lyndon does with the multiversal stuff, where she actually does find, different universes where something might be, there might be a Jesus in one place and then also here, but maybe things happen a little differently. It wouldn't be our Jesus. And I hate that they went there with this. I'll say that. But it's like, of course they did. Of course they brought in like, what's one of the first things we need to look up is whether or not, like to try to like go, let's put this religion thing to bed and find out if there really was a Jesus, even though seeing that there's a Jesus doesn't prove that there's a God. Um, um, but he's scared that we might be magicians. He wants, and again, I said that he wanted to, I think deep down he wanted to be proven wrong, and I think he does by testing Katie, by saying, all right, let's prove it. But even though he's trying to, it sounds like he's trying to just prove that the machine works. I think, again, he just really wants to prove it wrong. So he's like, do this, but then don't do this, and then we'll know it doesn't work. But that it doesn't matter what's going to happen, that in 48 hours, Lily is going to be dead. And that effectively, it's already happened. Thinking about time, if it is just everything that's going to happen was always going to happen. Like I thought, like it could be about anything, and I think about this all the time. By the way, I think about time in that way, and I think it's because of Agents of Shield. I believe the character of Fitz on Agents of Shield talked about time this way, that effectively everything has already happened. And when I think about that, when I allow myself to think that basically I'm already dead, like I'll talk about myself and not bring the rest of the universe in on this part of the conversation. But like I think about how I'm existing right now, but that I also don't exist at all. And the time where I didn't exist before, it's all like happening at the same time almost somewhere, that we don't, it's all in a line, and that I could go backwards. I don't know. Like that's the thing. That's the thing that fucks with me so bad is like, and part of what the themes of this fuck with me is that, and it scares me to think that this is all predetermined and that no matter what, my end was always going to happen somehow. And it's like, yes, somehow, somewhere down the line, I will end. But I hate to think that I couldn't change that, but we can't know. And that's what broke, like, basically, I feel like I just broke a blood vessel in my brain talking about this. Just aneurysm. Can you imagine if that was like, I would, okay, if that happens right now and I suddenly have, if this video suddenly stops and everybody's like, there's just dead air for like hours of me just recording, like the recording stops and my family finds this video because I had an aneurysm, please air this. Please still put it up on YouTube because that would be amazing. What a way to go. But anyway, this is where Jamie's like, look, you got to call the cops. We got to get the FBI involved. But Lily's so scared, she's thinking of them like the mob. But the thing is like, of all those ways to think about these corporations and companies as being the mob, what's scary is that she doesn't even realize that none of that way of thinking about it even matters, because if they can always see you and what you're going to do or what you're ever going to do, that's the real threat. So watching them struggle with just the regular ways that they should be scared in the real world, when a whole new thing has happened and changed everything without anyone knowing, it's really kind of amazing to watch, because you just know it's like no matter what they do, somehow they're effed. And they're, and watching them just not know what to do and know that they don't know what to do. And they have a little bit of a moment with each other where they realize that they both know what it was like to actually go out with each other. And that's just because they're frustrated and pissed at their situation. But Kenton decides to visit Lily. She's over at Jamie's. So Kenton goes over to stop at her house, where he gets to meet Pete. Yay, Pete, the real hero of this show, right? The guy that's actually there to protect Lily. from outside forces, the guy who's there. And I think it's kind of interesting that everybody has these conversations with this character. In real life, I think a lot of people would just ignore him. Um, but it's interesting that these characters are kind of like Kenton here doesn't have to do anything, but he understands that this guy's homeless. He probably sees some things. So it would make sense to talk to him. But of course, this guy, he knows that he can just smell Kenton's wrongness. I think when you're in a situation like Pete is, let's say that he's just a homeless guy and he's not an undercover cop. And he's probably just a homeless guy, and I'm looking at it way too hard like I always am, because I just can't remember what Pete's final, like what his end is on this show or where he's going on the show, if anywhere. He could be just a massive red herring and just, he's just a guy who, like, the more when he has nothing, he's more on the level than everybody else, I guess. And his perspective of, seeing who is wrong and who is right. When nobody notices you and all you do is observe, you can see a lot of things in people that they don't even know you notice. And I do that too, and I'm not even homeless. But he's like, hey, I'm just here, to help. I just want to make sure that Lily's okay. I work with her. And he's like, I'm not police. And he just goes, I know, but I'm still worried. So it's like I say, he sees right through him and that he may not be police, but he's dangerous. And he just, he gets the smoke from the guy. And just like with Jamie, right? He doesn't give a fuck. He gets the cigarette from the guy, just like he got money from Jamie, and he just throws it back in their face, like, yeah, I think she left a note for you. And he points up to the fuck you sign she left. And he looks at Kenton, who's looking at him, and he's like, I'm not scared of you. And Kenton goes, I know. And I can't figure out why. But she shows up. Pete tries to get her back, and she started this. The writer started this, actually. Alex Garland started this by introducing her trying to pretend that she's got issues, mental issues from the meeting. And that she skipped the appointment that they had. And I mean, already, as a story goes, if somebody that's bad is trying to get you to see a shrink, you know that person's trying to have that character committed. So none of us want her to go. But setting this up story-wise means that the character of Kenton gets to say, hey, you missed the appointment, and we really just need to make sure that you're okay. When really this is his excuse to try to get her committed, or at least to know how dangerous she really is. There's no way in the world I'm getting in this car with this guy. And I'm not quite sure that I would believe that she got in this car either, but story-wise, it has to happen. Drama's sake, it has to happen. I honestly think she would have said, I will go, but just tell me where and I'll go there. But there's no good way to go. Like, you're going to his doctor. It's all wrong. I've been to see the company such and suches, and they're not, a lot of times, man, they're not there to help you. They're there to help the person who's, who hired them. And we like to think that everybody's on the up and up, but you just never know. And as she drives away with Kenton, Pete gives old, shooting motion at Kenton's car. Just, he knows this guy is wrong and all bad. But how do you, how do you stop a situation in his state? Which leads me more and more to be like, he is just a homeless guy, and I'm just, again, the paranoia of this show makes you looking for everything. Plus, everybody's looking at everyone. Everybody's observing everyone. So, and plus the cliche of the guy who turns out to be an undercover cop is a pretty big cliche in itself too. But Lyndon has this breakthrough. We don't see what it is. All of a sudden, her face just changes, and the way that she's talking about it to Stuart, her eyes are lit up. Everything, there's an energy to whatever they're saying, you know. And it's like, what did they do? What did they see? But we don't get to see that yet because they cut to Lily seeing the psychiatrist. And at first, the only thing that I gleaned from this for myself was that when he was talking about like her relationship to her parents, and that, you know, she says at first that she's close to her mom, but that she's not really close, that they pretend to be close because, you know, they kind of need it that way. That this is their relationship. This is how they do things. And that is so gosh darn true. Like it's one of the things that but I really hate it. I hate that aspect of ourselves, and I hate when I've done it. Is that pretending to be close to someone when you're not? I know that, like, I fail a lot of the social niceties. I don't, you know, sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's not, of how I just kind of snub my nose at the norms of like how people interact with each other, especially when you know you don't like the person you're like walking up on. I don't do that. I tend to I just kind of ignore people that rub me the wrong way. I don't do that. I have a really hard time with the fake phony baloney. Hey, you, when I you know, especially if there's like kind of like quiet open animosity to somebody. But there are so many people that just fake it till you make it. Maybe if I pretend that I like this person long enough, maybe I actually will forget that I don't like them, and I'll actually end up liking them somehow. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. I don't know, but like, I know that a lot of times we turn it on and off depending on our circumstances, and I struggle with that. The question of being like, is it better to be fake for politeness sake, or is it better to be, you know, for people to know exactly where they stand with you? Let me know. I mean, I know that it also can depend on your situation, you know, because there's certain times where I do go along to get along, when it's like delicate, like super delicate, when you're around people that, like, if you're with someone and you're at somewhere that they brought you, and there's just this kind of there's a level of like respect that you bring with you, where you turn it on. If you're a decent person, you turn it on. A shitty person, this is where they just go, fuck that, man. I ain't changing for fucking shit. But that's what I got from this, because all I was getting from the doctor was that he's trying to get her to confess so he can have her locked up. Meanwhile, Jamie cleans the apartment like crazy, and like just suddenly just, you know, cleans everything up. Maybe it's because he's like, I don't know, he doesn't want her to see a dirty apartment. I don't know. Or maybe this is just him. But when he leaves, something falls off the wall. And I'm wondering, foreshadowing? Maybe. But then we get finally what happened in the lab. What did Lyndon do? Because she's able to get a clear Aramaic voice out of her thing that's supposedly Jesus, and everybody's excited, and she's excited. I mean, this is a huge breakthrough. Sitting there listening to static, and all she does is she switches one thing out that they were using, which was not deterministic, and then she switches it for deterministic, and all of a sudden everything is crystal clear, and she can hear everything, and it works, and everybody should be happy, except Forrest isn't happy, and he calls it a party trick. Because it's not really our Jesus. It's a Jesus. It's a different universe's Jesus. And you're fired. Because you undermined the project. You went deterministic. We already know that he established that he doesn't like the multiversal theory. And this was established when he talked to Sergei about the multiversal theory in his first thing. So he didn't like that, and she's gone. Now, then we get what we already knew was coming, is that the doctor's dirty. Kenton walks in there with an envelope of cash and just says, "Give it to me." And he's like, "She didn't suffer any of this. She made it all up," essentially, is what he says. And that this is all a lie. And so when they get back in the car, Kenton's like, "I know everything," except he goes with it and says, "Yep, I understand you're going through some things, and we're gonna have you locked up." So he just decides to run with it. Meanwhile, what is she gonna do? What is she gonna do? And I keep thinking, what is she gonna do? And she turns the car and smashes it into the highway like embankment. Really great effect, because this definitely was like not filmed entirely in like on a highway. You could tell right when she almost got hit by that car. I feel like that part was definitely not real. There was some kind of insanely good looking green screen there. It did look a little uncanny valley, but it was still really cool. Just her running off, very realistic, being in an accident. So I'm gonna just make this little announcement while I'm recording this, that my filming situation has changed. So I'm probably going to kind of rush to the end of this video so I can get it finished, because we got a full house. So in order to stay focused, I want to try to get through this. So after the dramatic car crash, we have Lyndon and Stuart. And your typical, like, this is not your typical "I'm gonna just leave my job" kind of situation. This is dangerous because he threatened her. She gets $10 million. She gets to, live, but she can never talk about this to anyone because we'll see you if you do. And she kind of feels like this, like she's been to the most important place. This is the most important room she was ever in and might ever be in. And she was part of something that's like huge. But Stuart reminds her, of her situation, that she's very young, very rich, and that she should go. Because, I mean, if she was able to pull this off, she could probably pull off something else somewhere else, even greater. But that he will kill you. He will. Like, they all know how dangerous this is and how dangerous it would be to talk. Now, Katie and Forrest have this conversation right after this, where it's like, she bringing up that he's firing her best engineer. But to him, it's like, it's not our Jesus. If it's not our Jesus, then it's not our Amaya. And then it's not, then none of this matters. He doesn't want another version of his daughter. He wants his daughter. So it has to stay with that line for him. That yes, there is a version of this that technically works, but it's not from our universe. It's just searching from every universe, which also shows, well, okay, there is a Jesus and there is a multiverse. So I guess everybody wins. But then Katie puts Lyndon's sound waves to the deterministic light waves that they were using but using it in a non-deterministic way. And everything comes in clear, though. Like I said, it works technically. It's just not his Amaya. It still brings him the tears, but like, they've done this in tons of multiversal stories where somebody dies in one universe and the person goes to the other universe and is, like on the show, like, I don't want to make any spoilers, but there's been plenty of examples of this where the emotional struggle to realize that person's not yours. You have to see them as who they are in that universe, and who, if you do something with them, how that affects the people in that universe. And the selfish nature, that Forrest is trying not to have. Like, he's like, I don't want to mess with that other person's Maya. But when it's in front of him, he still breaks down. And then at the very end, Lily calls 911. And we learn what many people learn. First off, she shouldn't have called 911, but but I don't know. Maybe she should have. She's not, she was just in an accident. But this definitely doesn't help the case. Like when people say never call the cops, because she calls the cops without thinking about that she left the scene of a crime, and now this completely sets her up, that she's been to a shrink, that she's been on the ledge of a building. They didn't need to fake it. All she had to do was call out for help, and they didn't need a computer doing quantum mechanics to catch her. And even if they could help, would it matter? Because somebody would be able to see where you are and know where you're going, and they would probably take those cops out too. So now she's getting involuntarily psychiatric hold, taken away, and as she's leaving, Kenton pops his head in, and guess who just lets him walk in? The cops, because he used to be a cop. And they're turning the other way, even though there's no reason for him to go into that guy's apartment if they're just taking her away in a psychiatric hold. But there he is inside Jamie's apartment saying, "Hello, Jamie," closing the door, pushing him back, closing the curtains. It's not looking good for old Jamie. And that's where this episode ends. And as uncomfortable as some of the stuff was in this episode, this was an uncomfortable video to finish. But we got there. And I apologize. And in the future, just let me know, folks, would you rather me just try to pause, try to just start another video, because on StreamYard, I can pause it, but I don't know, if I can exit off of it. I think I still have to finish it in some form. So would you guys rather see me struggle to finish, or just start a new video when I can to make it more, like I said, more, I'm going to say the terrible word, when I make it more better. But anyway, I hope that even in the end, it still came out looking all right for everybody. And I hope that this was a fun video to listen to, or at least a thought-provoking one at that. So anyway, this is Rob saying we will be back with episode 5. We are in the back half now of DEVS. Be good to each other, and I will see you on the next video. As the dryer behind me shakes like crazy, I swear everything in this house is about to explode. Bye.